elected president, I will bring it back bigger and better and stronger than ever before, and we will make America great again. Thank you. Thank you very much. 2016, year of the snake. Time for a change in the White House, y'all. Bring it. Gotta get a real leader, want a real leader, then we need a real man. Build a wall, deal with all them terrorists. America needs a man that can. If you want a real thing in your own backyard, one choice, you gotta play your trump card. I say Trump, you say how high. I say Trump, you say hell. Make America great again. Make America, make America great again. Make America great again. Time to make America great again. Socialist Sanders, Daddy Rick Flanders, Army Rangers in the Navy SEALs.
Hey, Janet A, Christina A, Karen, how's it going? I know, I was just seeing myself on the Will Johnson video too. It was a good day. Make America great again. Click the share button, folks. Let the folks know we are live. As you know, Facebook censors me as bad as any and everybody. As we're in Facebook jail right now. For sharing an article on hydroxychloroquine, which, interesting, has it gone, Laura? Interestingly, we're going to talk briefly about that and the latest news. Thank you for sharing, Karen.
Do you like having the right to bear arms? Protect your family? What about the ability to work a job? Have jobs available to us? You know who we need? This name starts with a D and ends with a Trump. Come on,
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. You are watching the one and only Trump Talk US live in DC with Suzzanne Monk. I am Suzzanne Monk. We're 8 minutes away from the Capitol, 15 minutes away from the White House. And yes, as always, we are going to be talking about this election. We're going to be talking about reopening the country. There is Chris McDonald, our Monkin representing Trump Talk US in the room. We are still broadcasting on Trump Talk US. We're broadcasting on the Reopen America page and on my MAGA Woman page. We are not broadcasting on my profile right now. Why? Because I'm in Facebook jail for sharing a news article. About hydroxychloroquine. So let's get started about talking about this election and what we're going to need to do going forward and what the Democrat strategy is going to be going forward as well, because that's what we're going to be dealing with for the next several months. It's now June. middle of June. We're coming up on July, August, September, October, November, beginning of November. So we're going to be looking at 4 months, the next 4 months. We're going to spend some time tonight talking about what I think the next 4 months are going to look like and what we as patriots need to be doing to continue to get the job done. Because most important, 100% most important thing that happens in 2020, it's not the virus, it's not the murder hornets, it's not the city of Chad's Chop, whatever they're calling it now, it's not the riots, it's not police brutality, it's not any of these things. The most important thing that happens in 2020 is we re-elect Donald J. Trump. Why is that so important? Well, it's obvious when we see what the Democrats are willing to do to win this election. So the Democrat strategy so far has been, they have absolutely no ability to beat this president. They have no ability to beat this president. They are going to do everything they can to try to undermine this election in order to prevent not only us winning the White House, which I think is far, even they were going to recognize it's far and beyond their capacity to do so, to prevent President Trump from being elected. But more so, and of greater concern, they're going to attempt to take back the Senate, to control the Senate, and to continue to keep control of the House. Now, what we need to do is get that momentum for President Trump behind our other candidates on the state level, behind the senatorial candidates, behind the congressional candidates, and make sure that we, the conservative Americans, the patriot Americans, the pro-Trump movement actually continues. How's it going, Kelly? Marita, good to see you. Actually continues to have momentum, and we give President Trump the kind of Congress he is going to need in his second term moving forward. Now, what we're going to be fighting against is chaos. The attempt by the Democrats. They clearly have nothing else other than chaos. They have to demoralize the vote. They have to frighten us, literally, from voting. They want us to be frightened. They need to control the vote. So they're going to continue to push for mail-in voting. They're going to continue to push for last-minute manipulations of the voting system because of the coronavirus. They're going to use whatever excuses they can come up with. They're going to continue to try to win over or demoralize the black vote. If they can't get the black vote, the Democrats are statistically nearly impossible for them to accomplish any of their goals electorally, because they depend on that black urban vote. They depend on that black vote in the urban environments, in the cities, where they pick up a lot of their votes. So this is why we're going to continue to see more racial divide. We're going to continue to see panic, aggressive politics, aggressive attacks against the president, moral attacks. We're going right back to everything we did in 2016. We're going to do that again, sometimes the exact same thing again. But what Chris says is so true, and I'm going to put this up because I think this is important. Everything the left does is opening the eyes of the people all across the country. Very much so. And this is why we're talking about their strategy tonight, because that we are actually capable of helping the Democrats destroy themselves. And we do that by making sure that we continue to share the right kind of information, we continue to do the right kind of things, and we continue to make sure that we are engaging in the right activities that help, that basically facilitate, don't get in your enemy's way when he's hurting himself. We might actually want to help. We want to help them hurt themselves a little bit. And one of the ways we're going to do that is to continue to be aware of what the strategy is that the Democrats are engaging in, and then counter that strategy. So what are we going to see? We're going to see continued aggression. We're going to see continued race baiting. We're going to see continued threats of the coronavirus. So we have to deal with a few things. One, We have to continue to reopen this country. We have to continue to push back on every single topic of misinformation. Topic of misinformation coming out today. The FDA has removed the emergency order, the emergency exemption for hydroxychloroquine. Now, the news is making that seem because in the language, the FDA said, well, there's no evidence that it's proved useful in a hospital setting, yada, yada, yada. The reality of the situation is this actually opens up hydroxychloroquine to be used as a treatment earlier on in the process. It does not limit the ability to use it off label. We still have the ability to use it off label. In fact, this may actually help in these states where doctors are actually being prevented from using it off label because we have off label protocol already in place around the country. So the headline says something horrible. The headline says, oh, it's awful. And they've spun it so that it sounds like the FDA is saying that hydroxychloroquine is not effective for the treatment of coronavirus when we know it is effective for the treatment of coronavirus, particularly when we get that treatment to people earlier on. So, rule number 1 for the rest of 2020, read the articles. Read the articles. Read the text. Don't just read the headlines. The headlines are going to be, in many cases, direct lies. Direct lies. You've got to get in. You've got to read the actual information. And then share that and correct that. How's it going, Sue? Yes, Marita, this is so true. This is so true. Many nurses, doctors have come out and said it helps. Yes, many have. In fact, that's why I'm in Facebook jail. I shared an article from the New York Post from April, actually, that there was a poll of doctors, and the doctors in this poll, the vast majority of them said that hydroxychloroquine does, in fact, help. This is why I'm in Facebook jail. I didn't share a caption. I didn't share any text with it. I just shared the article from the New York Post from April. Facebook jail. 30 days. Because it goes against their standards of harm. Potentially suggesting harm. And that's what they want to use on that. Now, that means we're over the target. So we need to continue to push our governors, our senators, and right now our governors, our mayors, our governors, our mayors. We need to get into our senators and congressmen. We need to get into our local government, our city councils. We need to be contacting them on a regular basis, telling them that not only do we need to be reopened, but we're not continuing to tolerate this ridiculous double standard. We're seeing the double standard now that President Trump is beginning to talk about starting to do Trump rallies again. We see the double standard come out bald-faced. Bald-faced. They're not even pretending like the double standard isn't there. So we need to call it out. You know, it's one thing to have a double standard. It's one thing to have a double standard and to see the double standard be obvious. But one thing I've found on the right, people on the conservative side of the fence have a real problem actually calling stuff out. We know it's wrong. We're mad. We yell about it on Facebook, but we don't go and protest. We don't go and call the governors and mayors. We don't start writing letters and emails. We don't boycott companies. We just sit there and complain. We're going to need to push back. So now is a great time to go back, find your governor's phone number, find your mayor's phone number, find their email, write a letter, engage. Go to City Hall. If your City Hall is still closed, like mine is here in DC, go put signs on the door. Tape signs on the door if you have to. But continue to push back. Let those folks in elected office know we're not happy with these issues. We're going to continue to inform you guys about lawsuits and cases that are going forward. There's going to be a lot of progress that can be made in those instances. Now, we also, as you know, here at Reopen America, we're working very hard to encourage folks to reach out to their sheriffs. Now, here's why it's important. I'm going to put this up because Monarch 59 says this, and we do need to be concerned about this. So thank you for mentioning it. Unfortunately, I think we might have to go back into quarantine thanks to the protesters. It's not thanks to the protesters. It has literally nothing to do with the protesters. In fact, interesting enough, they are being informed in New York, for example. The contact tracers, when they're talking to people, asking these questions, they are being told to not ask, to avoid asking if someone has been to these protests for George Floyd. Yeah. They do not want the data. They do not want the information. If they collect that information, and what you and I both know will probably happen, there will be no particular rise in cases from people who have attended these events. It defeats their narrative. So they are literally going out of their way to avoid gathering that data. And so that's exactly what we need to continue to push back on. Your state, your governor, et cetera, is going to say, well, these cases, blah, 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 we need to stay in, da, 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 we can't have big gatherings, da, da, da. We, in every single state, are going to need to push back and say, but you let protesters protest in the streets, and that was fine. Thousands of them. So we're not buying it anymore. We're not buying these shutdowns. And we're going to need to, as I say, well, Dennis, we'll talk about that in a second. Dennis has a good question. I'm going to just pop it up on the screen. The day after the elections in November, when Trump wins, what happens? We'll talk about that as we go through the process a little bit. So what we're going to need to start to do is reach out to our sheriffs. Now, this is a great time to do this. This is a great time to be reaching out to sheriffs and law enforcement. They are very frustrated with the leadership over them. They are very frustrated with their governors and with the mayors because they have literally been put in a war on the streets of our country and with little respect. And in fact, disrespect, being told that we want to defund the police, we want to disband the police. We are told that they are told to tolerate physical violence, to allow protest violence, which is illegal. It is not protected by the Constitution. Okay. Someone needs to tell Andrew Cuomo about the First Amendment and how important peaceable assembly is. We have the right to redress our grievances. We have the right to protest, but we don't have the right to be violent or aggressive or intimidate, damage property. We don't have the right to do that. The Democrats have tolerated that. And we're going to need to push back on that. The sheriffs, our law enforcement are frustrated. So we are, of course, in a time where we should be reaching out to our law enforcement, letting them know we continue to support them. We continue to stand by them in their value in our communities. That being said, on top of that, we're going to need them to hold up their oath to the Constitution. We support you. Thank you for doing your job. We're going to ask you, as we're going forward, to not enforce any future shutdown orders. Preempt what's going to happen next. If we're already engaging in those relationships, if we already have local law enforcement, hello, Joseph, how's it going? If we already have local law enforcement on our side, letting them know we have their back, we will prevent the ability to engage in another shutdown. They will be able to issue guidelines all they want, but they won't have any teeth. One, because of the lawsuits that we continue to see across the country because of the shutdowns having more and more success, but secondarily, because we will have already built up a relationship with our constitutional sheriffs. We will already have built up a relationship with our law enforcement, even in the cities. Look, DC Metropolitan Police did not enforce the shutdown orders. They certainly were used. The Department of Health was the main weapon that was used to enforce these shutdown orders. So it wasn't the police. The police, in fact, made no arrests for the shutdown orders here in DC. Now, they were called out. They were used by the mayor to watch over block parties and do dumb stuff like that. But certainly the amount of enforcement they did was very low. So we can be engaging in a two-step process and a twofer, not even two-step, twofer. It's a double duty. Thanking our police officers, giving them the support they need, particularly in this difficult time, but additionally building that relationship with local law enforcement to prevent the enforcement of future shutdowns. Critical. Now, here's what we're also going to need. Yeah, and Terry, actually, law enforcement can be this is what I'm saying. He says, Terry says, let's just open the damn business and the hell with the governor and law enforcement. If they don't want to let us, we'll shut them down. Law enforcement can actually be an ally in this process. So when your business is open and some states and many states, what they're basically able to do is refuse to go and enforce those orders. So the Department of Health is often not issuing any orders because they don't have law enforcement to come and support them. They're afraid to go and issue shutdown orders and tickets without law enforcement and without the legal precedents that they had before. So certainly the more they try to shut us down, now that we have more and more information, we are getting closer and closer to be able to legally addressing this in a very quick way. And so that's what we're going to continue to need to work on. So we got to call our governors and mayors, let them know we need to be reopened, not half reopened, not phases. All of this is stupid. We're not doing this anymore. Reopen. We need them to stay out of the relationship between a doctor and a patient when it comes to prescribing medications. So we need to push back on this hydroxychloroquine issue because what they will try to do, let's talk about the virus a little bit. The Democrats will want more cases. That's why you've seen they've increased testing. They are increased advertising for testing. They're going to continue to promote testing. They've already started back with the numbers. Nobody talks about the numbers for a week, 2 weeks while we're protesting, screaming for George Floyd. All of a sudden, we're talking about numbers again. But even with this new push, they're not having the numbers that they need to justify additional shutdowns. Even here in D.C., we've seen 10 straight days of continuing reducing numbers from whatever the stupid phase we were before. Another 4 days. We should be going into phase 2. This trickle-down philosophy, we're going to end up going through a lot of it, especially in your blue states. I get it. I'm fighting the same fight as you guys are fighting. We don't have the leverage in these blue cities to force them to reopen, but we have to continue to create the pressure. We have to continue to create the pressure because critical strategy understanding, even in these shutdown states, Virginia, many of them, Illinois, California, DC, Maryland, even in these states that continue to drag out the shutdowns, okay, or want to bring back the shutdowns, are pushing back, validates other people who are seeing the same problem, validates other people that are seeing the same frustration, gives other people legs underneath their concerns to go, you know what? I don't like this. I don't like what they're doing. I don't like how they're shutting us down. I don't like how these elected officials are operating their state. And in many cases, they're Democrats. So we start to build up that frustration in these blue areas against the Democrats. And what helps that frustration get built is our speaking out. It's already happening with the protests, with the riots across the country, with Chaz, with the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone or Occupied Protest or whatever they're calling it now. We're already seeing residents of that area come out and speak to the fear, the crime increase, the danger that they're engaged in on a regular basis, fear that they won't be able to get medical care, what they're having to go through to go and get groceries. That reality, that grown-up reality, is becoming more and more obvious. All the while, you see, Chaz, you see these protesters continue to reveal themselves for the communist, anarchistic, anti-American, anti-government movement that they are. And so you see this desperation. The desperation should be obvious to any of us that have been following the Democrat plan all along. If the shutdowns were working, we wouldn't have seen this resurgence of racist anger. But the shutdowns were not keeping the Black community in fear, no matter how hard they tried to lie and misrepresent that it was affecting the Black community more. They were not responding in anger to the Democrats. In fact, they were responding in anger to the Democrats. They were not responding in anger to the Republicans. They were responding in anger to their leaders, their elected officials. And we were having success. Reopening was having success. Yes, Brittany, I'm going to put this up because this is 100% true. As soon as we started reopen rallies, suddenly comes Antifa. Suddenly comes this huge outrage and anger that we changed the whole narrative. You know, they were so busy telling us that us reopeners were going to kill everyone because we had gone outside. We were in public with others. Grandma's dying now. It's all those reopeners' fault. That was working so badly. They were losing so much of the needed vote so badly that they had to defy their own shutdown narrative, refute it, defeat it, basically. Nothing has been more damaging to the narrative that we need to be shut down as these protests that we have seen over the last 2 weeks. Nothing has been more clear that, yeah, especially with the no masks, especially they're very upset about that. And here's what's funny. They tried very hard. I'm glad you mentioned this. They tried very hard in these protests to convince people to wear their masks. Trust me, the people who organized them, they made sure people had water, snacks, masks, gloves freely available. They wanted to make sure that it looked like they were wearing the mask so they can at least keep up that narrative that, oh, well, the masks somehow protect. But the masks, we already caught them in that lie. We've already caught them in that lie from the CDC, from the medical community, from the side of the box of the masks that literally says that these masks do not prevent the spread of virus, particularly not the COVID-19 virus. So we've already caught them in that lie, but they tried to keep it. It didn't work because as people are going through protesting, they just take off their mask. It's hot. It's a nice day. People go back to normal. And so this is what the protests have actually accomplished. People now want to get in social gatherings. They're no longer afraid of being around large groups of people. They're no longer afraid of normal face-to-face communication. And the effect of fear has been utterly obliterated by their own protests. But that's how desperate they were. So as they're going forward, they ridiculously, of course, are trying to now talk about, well, the virus, yada, yada, yada. No one wants to listen to that anymore because obviously we've seen that's a load of BS. Even the president is pushing back on that. So we are seeing a huge move psychologically in this country away from the fear and towards renormalification is what I'm going to call it. Renormalization, perhaps is a better word. So we are seeing that, and we're going to see that going forward here in just the next week or so. President Trump is going to be having a rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma on the 20th. My good friend Lucretia is going to be getting married on that day. That's where I'm going to be at her event, at her wedding. Very happy to be there. But many people will be at the Tulsa, Oklahoma rally. And as you see, the Trump campaign has been stating this for quite some time, revealing the number of tickets that people are actually applying for. And it went up 200,000, 300,000, 800,000, now over 1 million people trying to get to this event. So patriots are no longer living in fear. The left is no longer living in fear. Certainly the Democrats are no longer living in, the black Democrats are certainly no longer living in fear. Nobody's living in fear, but the Democrat Party needs to still have that manipulative control because without that fear, they don't have any excuse to continue their mail-in balloting push. The strategy is really starting to come apart at the seams. It's one of the reasons that we need to be even more aggressive in our activities going forward. So obviously, as we've seen, as I've talked about, we need to continue to push back to reopen. We also need to start doing Trump events again, doing our flag waves again, going out on our street corners with signs, letting people know we support the president and we are here in the streets doing so. That is actually a great momentum right now. I'm never a big fan of saying, let's start doing rallies. But I think that now is the great time to have street rallies, flag waves. This kind of activity needs to begin again. The weather is beautiful. The weather is beautiful. And we can do that even in small groups. For those of us who are always like, you're going to make a narrative that we're spreading the virus, then go out in groups of 10, do 10 people flag waves. But get on the street and support the president. Wear your gear. The more they try to frighten us into it, the more we need to do it. And here's what's great. What I've noticed at the several rallies I've been at, and I've been now 3 different times to the Black Lives Matter protests here in the city, once with Will Johnson and Ben Burkham. There is a lot of aggression for Trump supporters, but not as much as you would think. And certainly when I was there all day, when we were there all day just last week with my signs, Democrats use Black lives to get votes. Democrat unions protect bad cops, defund unions. Democrats killed George Floyd. Democrats are going to let his killer free. Why do blacks continue to vote Democrat? These are the signs that I brought. Those messages are very welcome to even people who are angry enough, black people who are angry enough to get up, go down, protest in the street. Those messages resonated still, because the Democrats continue to prove that they're pandering, and now they're in pandering mode. Now they're freaking out about the pandering. Okay, now they've got the kente cloth and they're kneeling down, and Nancy Pelosi can't get up off her knees. Now we're seeing the more and more aggressive, violent, radical, communistic underpinnings of the Black Lives Matter movement. Black Lives Matter is dividing itself. It's dividing itself from those who are stating the sentiment that Black lives actually matter. That's the sentiment, that Black lives matter. Versus those who are in the organization. Black Lives Matter, the organization that seeks, if you look at their goals, they're very communistic. They're bringing down the capitalist system, bringing down the American system, etc. It's a clearly interconnected community with the leftist, radical left. They're actually breaking themselves apart from that. And they're doing that because it's starting to be recognized even in the average black community that these are the folks committing acts of violence. These are the folks that are burning down the neighborhoods. These are the folks that are attacking, killing, maiming, destroying, etc. These anarchists, and they're interlopers. They are there infiltrating and manipulating the movement. We're seeing it in Chaz Chop. We're seeing it across the country as these protests move into their Occupy phase. The motives and the immorality of these organizers is becoming obvious the more they are left in their own devices. One of the things that's really been interesting watching this Chaz Chop experiment, a lot of people have been very concerned, that we allow this area to continue. But I don't know, guys. I feel like letting it continue and crumble under its own, showing full demonstration what the Democrats are willing to do. They're literally willing to abandon the people, abandon people's medical needs, abandon the city services, abandon your taxpayers who have paid for police protection, for water service, for electricity, for all of the basic city services that are now not available, fire departments, etc., now not available because of this autonomous zone, because it's been hijacked, it's been taken hostage, basically. We're seeing what the Democrats are willing to let happen. And it's moving more and more votes away. Moving more and more votes away from the Democrat Party. And Brittany, yes, I know what she meant to say. I'm going to put this up. And giving black people a bad name. I'm assuming, of course, meant to say black people. That's what makes sense. Yes, giving black people a bad name in the process. And that's what's waking up a lot of folks. You're seeing more and more black folks even in the moment in the protests saying, no, this isn't right. This isn't what we're doing. This isn't what we're standing for. I was down at the Black Lives Matter protest. We had two pairs of white liberals tried to light the American flag on fire. The second duo succeeded, but a black woman came in, put out the fire, and she cussed them out. So it is becoming obvious. It is becoming more and more obvious that there are instigators. And so as we see additional cases, even George Floyd, that momentum was starting to get expensive. Okay. It was no longer black outrage. It was starting just to become leftist, and they knew it. They were losing the grip of the black community, which is the whole reason it didn't earn the votes. So we see another case. Now, does that mean that they killed this guy and they planned it all? No. What I'm saying is the Democrats are very good at taking advantage of a media situation. So you run across one of these situations, easy peasy lemon squeezy, bada bing, bada boom. Fireworks. And they now push that. They now push that situation into the forefront of the media to get outrage. Now, it's going to be very interesting because I think they're so busy pushing this narrative, attempting to push this angry black narrative, that they're losing even more of their own narrative. This particular case in Atlanta, the perpetrator was completely out of line in his resisting arrest, grabbed the officer's taser while trying to grab the officer's sidearm, shot at the officer with the taser, ran away, but turned to shoot at the officer. This is after they have wrestled on the ground, and it was only by effort of the police officer that it was not his firearm that he was shooting at the police officer. So it's absolutely ridiculous. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a case that they're going to hype it up, but even on the slightest investigation into the situation, into the actual shooting, you see it's obvious that this individual was completely out of control. Logic is starting to be their enemy. So we need to continue to be patient. They want us to be emotionally upset. What did you just say, Suzzanne? I'm going to say it again, because we need to be productive. We need to be busting our ass. We need to be out there in the streets with our protests, with our rallies. We need to be supporting the president. We need to be doing flag waves. We need to be talking to our neighbors. We need to be registering voters. All of this. We need to be very active. So that sounds like the opposite of patience. Then why are you saying we need to be patient? We need to be patient with the chaos. And I don't mean that we need to tolerate the chaos. What I'm saying is we need to be emotionally patient with the chaos. They're going to create more chaos. The idea is to get all of us so upset by what Lisa's saying here. So much stupidity being exposed every day, to get us so upset that we get fed up and we get angry and we do stupid things and we say stupid things and we make stupid statements and we start talking about, running people over in our cars, whatever we crazy start. We start to make the headlines they want for us. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make us angry enough that once we get closer to the conventions, they can instigate our aggression, what looks like Trump supporter aggression, and use that as leverage against us going forward. So we need to be patient people. We need to be calm mom and dad. Not your best friend. You're grounded. We're taking away the car. All of that. But we're calm. We're not angry. That's what's going to make it so important. That's what's going to make us successful. That's what's going to prevent the emotional demoralization. So what do we need to do? We need to continue to reopen. Like I said, reach out to our governors, our mayors, continue that pressure, reach out to your law enforcement, encourage them to enforce the Constitution, encourage them to stand down on these shutdown orders, let them know you support them. You will continue to work to elect individuals who want to support and fund the police. Those are all going to be important things. 2, we need to get out there like it's 2016 all over again. flag waves, rallies, events, Trump meetups. Meet new people. Meet new people. Register new voters. Register new voters. Get out there. That some of this is actually going to be what does the third thing, which is help us stay calm, help us stay patient. We're building those relationships. We're building those networks. We're having a productive activity so we feel like we're making a difference. We can see, I registered 10 voters this month. You can see the progress. You can see the result. That's going to give you the calm resolve to get the job done. That's what we need. The calm resolve to get the job done. As we're seeing the Democrat strategy, we said this episode was about. We're talking about the Democrat strategy. As we've seen their strategies to cause chaos, and they are so desperate right now that they don't even care that the strategy that they're on, okay, they don't even care that chaos defeats whatever they just tried to do before. They cannot even interlink their strategies anymore because they're so desperate to try to prevent what we're already seeing in the polls, what we're already seeing, a red wave, a huge red wave. They're actually causing more of the red wave, but it's going to be your job to help handhold some of those people who are seeing the frustration. I don't want to get away from it. I'm going to make a suggestion. Revisit some of those relationships that you had in the past that were uncomfortable because of something Trump. Okay. Check in on those folks. Go stalk their Facebook profiles for a minute. See what they're doing. See where their TDS is. How can you tell, Suzzanne? Well, if they're posting a bunch of F Trump stuff, the TDS is higher. If they're literally trying to avoid posting politics at all, they're moved completely away from that. Or if you see they're posting, more normal news, more current events, check in, start a conversation. Say, hey, good to talk to you. Just thought I'd touch base. It's 2020. This year's crazy. I just wanted to reach out to everybody again. Reach out. Rebuild those relationships. Start those conversations again. Because you're going to have people who weren't able to have those conversations 4 years ago, 3 years ago, that are able to have those conversations, that are waiting to have those conversations. And they need some support. And they need to know that it's okay that they didn't get it for 4 years. And they're not going to be judged. There's a process when you come around to the right political agenda. When one of the things that's so hard for folks who walk away from the Democrat Party. It's hard to admit you were wrong. It's hard to accept that you were fooled for so long. So it emotionally affects people. They feel bad. It undermines their self-esteem. Having your friends there say, you know what? It's all good. Welcome to the Trump train. Glad to have you. Bygones be bygones, move forward. That emotional space that you can provide for some of your friends can do wonders to mitigate that uncertainty. And those voices can become very useful voices in the election, in the campaign going forward over the next few months. So we need to get out. We need to get out of our box. We need to get out of our safe space. We need to get out of our lanes, even swerve into the other lanes a little bit. Start to reconnect with individuals. Check out where people are at. Don't assume that just because somebody was a Trump hater in 2016 that they still are a Trump hater. Finding common ground with folks on the left right now is going to be immensely useful. Finding common ground with folks who are frustrated with the Democrats but vote Democrat traditionally is going to be so useful. We all agree the shutdowns are stupid. We all agree that we need things like prison reform, that we need things like addressing criminal justice issues. We need to lower the criminal components in our society. We need a secure border. There's a lot of folks that agree with us on a lot of these issues. Gang violence, the decay of the Democrat-run cities. A lot of folks agreeing with us. They just need someone to identify with, to connect with. So that's what we're going to be working on going forward. Now, so we're going to reopen. Like I said, we're going to continue that pressure. We're going to engage our law enforcement, both to support. See, exactly. Thank you, Janice. I appreciate that. She says, hey, Suzzanne, you helped me calm down in 2016 before the election. Thank you. Thank you. And that's what we have to continue to do. We need to continue to stay calm. We continue to stay calm. So important that we stay focused. We're going to win this election. We can take back Congress. We will hold the Senate if we do the work. Now, let's talk about this final strategy. Final strategy. It's going to be so important. So we need to start doing it now. I need each and every one of you in your state, okay? In your state, in your county, particularly in the battleground states, my Floridas, my Pennsylvanias, my Virginias, particularly in some of these battleground states. I need you to get a group of people already ready to go and protest the day of the election. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to be registering voters, getting out there, doing flag waves. We're going to be winning votes for Trump over the next few months. We're also going to be preparing to get people to the polls, scheduling rides, making sure that we're helping every single person we can. Elderly people, talking to the old folks' homes, talking to the elderly people in your community, making sure they have rides to the polls, making sure that they got their vote in, okay? Making sure they've mailed their absentee ballot if that's what they choose to do. Making sure the votes are getting in. Making sure the votes are getting in. So important. So we're going to be doing that up to the election. We're going to go to the election. We're going to get all those people to vote. But we're also going to be planning over the next few months groups of individuals who are ready to enforce our election laws through protest, through public outcry, as we saw in Florida in 2018. We didn't see it in Michigan. Okay? John James would be senator today if we had the kind of protesters we had ready to go in Florida, ready to be at the Board of Elections the next day, the day after the election. We had a team ready. People were ready. We had the same problem happening in Michigan. The same problem happening in Michigan, but we didn't have the same result. Why? We didn't have anybody there to protest. We didn't have anyone there to protest. So it's going to be your mission. We're going to talk about it over and over and over again over the next few months. It's going to be your mission to know where the Board of Elections office is in your county and to have a group of 10 to 20 to 40 people that you can call. You call 10, they call 10, 100, 200 people. We need to make a phone tree of at least having groups of protesters. It can start small, but it will grow. We need at least 10 people at every single major battleground Board of Elections. We need people in every state. So we're going to be working on building those networks. If you are one of those people who would be willing to go down the day of the election, the day after the election, and protest at the Board of Elections, reach out to me. Reach out to other people in your state, in your county that are close enough to be able to do that and get a commitment from them. If we have any shenanigans, are you ready to go protest? Start to plan that event as if it's already going to happen. Will it happen? Maybe, maybe not. Probably, yes. So we're going to need to be able to push back on that. That's going to create the result we need on the congressional and senatorial races. That's going to prevent a lot of the election fraud from happening with these absentee ballots, because that's where they find more ballots in this after counting. The pressure we put on Florida is what happened that put Ron DeSantis in office, that did so well down in Florida, that didn't happen up in Michigan. So we're going to definitely 100% need teams of people ready to work on that. So let's recap. What's the Democrat strategy going to be? Chaos. They want to continue to create racial divide. They want to continue to create political divide. They want to continue to try to do these anti-Trump events. That's what these protests really are. If you want any better proof, march into any of them with a MAGA hat on. See what happens. Tell you right now, you will be verbally, if not physically, assaulted. These are anti-Trump. These are organized events to be opposed to Trump, but they are showing their own hand, their own ineffectiveness, their own ignorance, and their own false leftist agenda is what they're showing. A false leftist agenda. They're showing that none of it has anything to do with race. They're proving it doesn't have anything to do with race. They're proving that they are merely using the black community to try to push an anti-capitalist, anarchistic, communistic agenda on the United States. The same communistic agenda they've been trying to impose upon the United States for decades. Decades and decades. Now, let's talk a little bit about something else we're going to have to deal with throughout the next 4 months. We're going to have to deal with idiots. For example, now here, this idiot. I don't understand people who literally put an exclamation point after Biden 2020. The man can't put a sentence together. Mr. Holmes 570, you are 100% correct. Black people only matter every 4 years to the Democrats. Many more people are waking up. So don't be afraid to engage these conversations. Don't be afraid to engage in this discussion, but continue to support reality. Reality, Mr. Holmes, reality 100%. This reality. Share many of these great stories and great posts and great, I'm actually really excited to see there's a lot more Black conservatives getting out at this Black Lives Matter protest this time around. A lot more Black conservatives getting out and really sticking it to the other side, letting them know we're not falling for the Black community is not falling for this anymore. We see what you're doing. And that's happening more and more. We are really seeing the effects of an empowered Black conservative movement that has happened under this president. I'm very proud to have been a part of it. I'm very proud to have been friends and supporters of movements like Walkaway, like Blexit, like so many other movements that have been empowering Black conservatives, modern conservatives, to speak up and to make their voices heard and to not fear that backlash within the Black community that they're going to be judged because they're not falling in lockstep line with the Democrats. That debate, that discussion is happening in the Black community. It's so beautiful. It's actually awesome. I love being able to step out of the conversation altogether. As a white person, let me just say, to be honest, I love being able to step out of the conversation altogether and let Black folks do. I'm going to put this up because this is the most racist thing we've had. No right-minded Black person would support Trump. That's a lie, sir. You are a racist for saying that. One, you are assuming that you can control the Black vote, that you tell Black people how to vote. Black people don't vote with you. In fact, you might as well just be Joe Biden and say, if you don't vote for Joe Biden, you ain't Black. That phrase is literally angered Black people on both sides of the aisle. Angered Black people on both sides of the aisle. And here's what's funny. Mr. Holmes, if I'm not mistaken, I'm going by the profile pic, Mr. Holmes. I'm going by the profile pic. You appear to be a Black man. I can introduce you to many other Black men and Black women who proudly support this president. Why? Why do they proudly support this president? Because they are no longer interested in the Democrat BS. That's what I'm talking about. See, Black conservative all day. This is exactly what I'm saying is actually happening. These folks think it's like 1950. Oh, it's like 1950 because you guys are trying to tell black conservatives how to vote. Stay on the plantation. If you don't, we'll send the dogs after you. We'll send the Antifa after you. We'll send the social media attacks after you. We'll send the black community after you to call you an Uncle Tom and all this other business. Yeah. You folks on the left who continue to try to enslave the black community, now you don't want them to pick cotton, you just want them to cast votes. And if they don't cast the votes you want, you use the same aggressive tactics. You just use, instead of an overseer with a whip, you have the federal government with welfare programs. You have folks like Black Lives Matter with that victim agenda, with that victim ideology to impose upon people. You have Planned Parenthood coming in and devastating generations of the black community who are not here today because Planned Parenthood has literally targeted black abortions. It's literally targeted. It was formed by Margaret Sanger, formed to reduce the black population. 100%. 100%. That's the reality of the situation. So the Democrats are losing. It's not like 1950, and you guys are going to be sad when you find out it's not like 1950. We're living in a whole new era. We're living in an era where you see black people, black conservatives and white conservatives unite like never before. This is 100% false. This continues to be false. Black communities are being hurt more than ever under Trump. 100% false. In fact, black unemployment was up at an all-time high. Black business development was at an all-time high. Black female business owners had increased to an all-time high. President Trump has appointed the first black individual in many jobs. Prison reform, something that both presidents, both parties promised to do. Obama, nothing. So, in fact, President Obama was providing the black community one of the best experiences that they've had in a long time. Thank you, Mr. Holmes. One of the best experiences they've had in a long time. What changed? Well, the shutdowns. The shutdowns. And who pushed for the shutdowns? The globalists, the Democrats, the Chinese. So then we see that economic boon have that negative impact. And now we see these race riots induced and incited by race pimps like Al Sharpton and his crew of race pimpery who use this division, this anger, this victimology narrative every 4 years to get votes for the Democrats. But it's not having the same effect as it has. Why? Because President Trump has already come in and said, you know what? You're not a lost cause. The cities are not a lost cause. Your job isn't a lost cause. This country isn't a lost cause. Yes, you may feel that nothing changes. So what do you have to lose? And what we found is not only do you have nothing to lose by voting for President Trump, but you actually had much to gain. And those gains will return as we push back against these Democrats. And the Democrats are making it obvious they're the ones causing the suffering. Over and over again. They're revealing their hand again and again and again. And will continue to do that. This is 100% not true. Our country is more weak in the eyes of the rest of the world. That's a 100% untrue. It's something that you on the left continue to repeat for yourselves, but it is not evidenced in any way. What we actually see is a strong United States that is actually now dominating in the world as far as national security issues. We see NATO and other allies putting in more revenue, paying more of their fair share. We see countries engaging in more of their own negotiations, not more of their own financial balancing, as opposed to depending constantly on the United States. For the first time ever, we had a plane fly from Saudi Arabia into Israel. It's not getting worse. It's getting better. It's getting better across the world. In fact, what's happening is the lefty media continues to want to help you guys believe this false narrative. And in order to do that, they have to keep sharing lies with you, like, oh, we're weaker in the eyes of the world. But they don't want to actually tell you in what way. They just say the thing, oh, we're weaker. Oh, we're more financially destitute. Stock market continues to be strong and on the rise. Oh, well, it's worse for Black people. Black unemployment at an all-time low. Black entrepreneurship at an all-time high. The message you guys keep saying is so obviously proven false again and again. That's where you're losing votes. That's where you're losing votes. And you'll continue to do that because none of you ever bother to try to read an actual news article. You merely go with the narrative. You merely go with whatever the headline is that comes out that pushes your anti-Trump agenda. You have what we call TDS. You have Trump derangement syndrome. And because of that, you can't see reality. It is a psychotic break with reality. And this is what we see across the country. This is what we're going to continue to push against. We're going to continue to find people who don't want to be TDS like you and who find your behavior kind of insane, who are starting to get a little fed up with their crazy friends who every single time anything happens and the president's name is mentioned, you have to freak out. No, you guys don't read books. You don't read books. Okay, here. I read books. That's a fraction. I'm sitting here in a front row of books. The book's all behind me. This is I do this show from a library, you geniuses. If you read books, you'd understand why Chaz Chop in Seattle isn't going to work. And why the communist ideas that they are touting are already collapsing, and you'd understand that as well. But since I know you don't read, you basically take what your professors told you to think. You find that agreement bias in the media, in your leftist propagandist media, and you use that to continue to maintain a mental disorder called Trump derangement syndrome. You're going to need help. We are going to reelect President Trump in 2020. We are going to take back the Congress and the Senate. Hopefully, we're going to use that as an opportunity to reopen some of our mental health care facilities to get some help from some of you people on the left who seriously need medical care. You need somebody to address the fact that you are delusional and you are devoid of reality because of your concern, your paranoia, your propaganda-induced hatred of this president who is actually doing great things for our nation. So, thank you, Christina. Thank you very much. And thank you for the compliment. Yes, I am a very articulate person, but I don't have to make up stuff to support the president. The president just continues to be awesome. So we're going to be back again on Wednesday night, you guys. Wednesday night, we'll be back. We're going to be talking about strategy a lot. We're going to get people active. They want us to be emotionally stressed out. They want us to be worried for our jobs, worried for our economic futures. They want us distracted and stressed so that we don't engage in the process. We're going to, if we have to, we'll Trump meditate if we have to stay calm. But we're going to stay calm. We're going to get this job done. So I'll see you guys all on Wednesday for some more conversations. We're continuing to talk about how we win, take back the House, keep the Senate, 2020. It's going to be some great stuff. Deborah, good to see you. Until next time, y'all. Have a great day. This is your girl, Suzzanne Monk. Trumping out.